Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. I will be joined by some of my illustrious colleagues in just a few moments. We are here for the Monday afternoon Acsom Bulletin. We're here to talk all things Celtic. As always, let us know in the comments section what you wish to discuss. We have a theory that Celtic have got another 30 million quid on its way into that bank vault, and it doesn't involve selling Matt O'Reilly. How could we get through this particular window without selling Matt O'Reilly? Is it possible? Is it a good idea? Paddy Lavery comes straight in and says, afternoon all, don't drink with Lawrence Connolly. Paddy, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe you can let us know a little bit more in relation to that one. We'll be talking obviously about the very sad passing of John Keane. The Urban Culture brings that one right into the conversation. And I've got to say, we'll have a wee look back obviously on his influence at that time when the club really did need people to step up, and John Keane did just that. We'll be looking back at the takeover years and his part that he played in it as well. Very sad news just over the weekend there. So thoughts and prayers with his friends and family as well. Ewan boy Martin is back. You've been wondering where he is. Well, he has just been, in fact, he still is. There he is. No, he's back home, just back from a very long journey. Germany to France, then home to Scotland. Back home into God's country to watch the next two games. Ewan, let us know what your experience was like. Was it any better than watching on the telly? Acsom Rabani is on his way. Just got a wee message from him. He will be joining me very soon indeed. This is the first bulletin of the week. So I'm going to start off here with my theory, just looking over the weekend at some of the figures that have been coming in relation to what we could maybe even call fringe players and also sell-on clauses and sell-on fees that Celtic have had inserted into previous sales. And we're going to be looking at that and how actually it amounts to another whopping £30 million to put into the coffers that are already bulging. And it really is a look at a situation where we don't have to sell our prized asset, because if we're going to spend the £36 million that I have already predicted last week, then gross, that's a gross spend, then we do not have to do that by selling our best asset. We're waiting on Jerry Taylor, we're waiting on Acsom Rabani. They will be coming in to talk to me about all of this, but I'm going to set this one up and let you tell us in the comments what you think. So, Georgios Giakoumakis was sold, or is in the process of being sold. I've seen him in his new blue, white and red jersey for his new side. And we are in line to receive around £1 million as a sell-on for Giakoumakis. Was he ever replaced? Not until Ida walked in the building, it would seem. Frimpong, Jeremy Frimpong, one of the most sought-after fullbacks in European football, is going to be sold for big money. There is a selling-on clause, but there's also a sell-on clause, which means Celtic would receive in the region of £7 million. There are reports that several Serie A clubs are fighting it out to buy Sajid Haksabanovic for £1.8 million, meaning that we would actually make a profit on a player who would widely be regarded as something of a flop, certainly under Brendan Rodgers. Lagerbielke has got the same kind of interest from Serie A, and the transfer fee, although we're going to be losing money on this player, is going to be in the region of £2 million. O is on his way to Genk for £4.2 million, making a profit on the player. And we've got the Abada £10 million nestling in the bank, alongside the fee that we're going to receive for Mikey Johnson. I've put that down as a conservative £3 million. Now, there's also interest for Marco Tilio and Yuki Kobayashi, and even nominal fees would take the total up to £30 million. So before we even go into the bank account, into the riches that we've been discussing that we know are already there, we've already got £30 million. And I'm going to bring in Jerry Taylor in just a moment to see what Jerry's thoughts are on that. Jerry, you are dialing in live. 30 million quid on top of all the riches that we've already been talking about for several months. Why sell Matt O'Reilly is the big question.
Yeah, we've said this before on the Wander Around Paradise, that I think the best piece of transfer business would be keep a hold of Matt O'Reilly and to build round him to show ambition. But the thing is Matt O'Reilly's ambition a lot higher than ours, and is he ready to take that next big step? It's going to be really tough to keep a hold of him, but I'm in the camp that if we want to progress as a club in Europe and we want to be taken seriously, we've got to keep our best players instead of just selling them on all the time. I understand that there's a business model that we've got to stick to, but now and again, if you've got a player who clearly loves the club, who's clearly got a great head on his shoulders and a good family around them, and just ticks every box, why not push that boat out? If we've got money coming in elsewhere, do we need to cash in on him? But it all depends on Matt, doesn't it? And what he wants to do. I mean, the love that he's shown in this country, especially from yourself, it's surely his family love it as well. Who knows? Who knows? We're gonna, is that romance tale there? Is that the fairy tale that he's going to stay and give us a couple of years? Because in my lifetime, there's only really been one player who's been idolised and he's stuck with us and he's stuck it out, and everyone knows that's the king himself. So who knows? Who knows, mate? I'd love to keep him. I don't know if you're going to be able to afford the counselling when he leaves either. So we're all thinking about you too, mate. But it'd be great ambition. Can you imagine to turn around and say that he signed a new contract plus adding to the squad? I'd love to see that.
Well, this is the thing, right? You make a great point. In my lifetime as well, Henrik Larsson staying at the club. You find out after the event concrete evidence that, for example, Manchester United tried to buy him when he was at his absolute peak at Celtic. And he stayed. And he stayed for 7 years, probably unheard of in this modern day, Jerry, because even though that doesn't seem like a lifetime ago, he left the club after 7 years, which was 2004. So it's 20 years ago. 20 years ago.
Mad.
I know. 20 years ago that Henrik Larsson left the football club. I don't think we're ever going to see that again, because for me, and people might argue that Van Dijk falls into this category, and there might be a few others. Let us know in the comment section if you believe there are a few others. Henrik Larsson was the last world-class Celtic player that I saw playing for the club. And by the way, there's an argument there, because Van Dijk was sensational. I was blown away when I saw him. In his earliest of games playing for Celtic, the whole bar just was raised, and then at that point you were then putting pressure on the recruitment team to go and do it again. But I would say, and I'm going to ask Acsom when he's in very, very shortly if he agrees with this, Henrik Larsson was the last world-class football player I've seen at Celtic Park wearing the hoops. There's the big man there. That's a world-class top that Acom's wearing there. We're talking Matt O'Reilly, Acom. We're talking £30 million coming in. And it almost feels like in dribs and drabs. Sell-on clause gets us £1 million for Giakoumakis. A sell-on fee, it gets us £7 million for Frimpong, for example. You add it all up, and it's there or thereabouts, especially when you throw in a few other transfer listed players, because apparently they are transfer listed. We have let that be known. Kobayashi, for example, and a few of the others. £30 million coming in that doesn't touch what's already sitting in the bank. It doesn't touch the season ticket money that's about to drop. It doesn't touch the future earnings of the Champions League. And crucially, it does not concern the sale of a top-class asset. So Jerry was talking there, I'm going to have to get the counselling out like I did after Larsson left. By the way, I was gutted when John Collins left as well, guys. Collins, I just thought, I was gutted when John Collins left.
Boric for me.
Boric, yeah.
Boric for me.
Left a few scars. What about yourself, Acom?
I think Larsson was the one I remember being close to tears. I think I might have been, actually. I was quite young, so that's my excuse. Since then, it's gutted when Nakamura left. But I think as you get older, and as with the way football's changed, you almost become accustomed to it and desensitised to it all. I think Kieran Tierney hit me hard, because obviously just with him being a Celtic fan, and you're just like, the timing of it. And then Ange, as recently as Ange was probably the last one, where again I got lulled in. You get sucked in, don't you? And then Jota as well. But I think after all of that,
everyone recently.
By the way, I was just going to say, firstly, apologies for being late. I'm not in a cafe, so there's no noisy dishwashers today. But we've got workmen both inside the house and outside the house. So if you do hear some loud sounds, apologies again. hopefully back to normal as of next week in terms of the noisy locations.
I'll tell you what, it was a nice location though. It was a nice backdrop that you had when you were on the road. And obviously we are, as a Celtic State of Mind, on the road once a week now. We film our weekly show at Barras Art and Design in the heart of the Barras. And the first 3 episodes are going down a storm. We are already working on episode 4. It never stops, Jerry Taylor. It's great fun. And it's a different setup, a new concept. And hopefully everybody at home is enjoying the first 3 episodes with Jackie McNamara, Simon Donnelly, and Bobby Petter. Who would you like to see on the show, Jerry? Who would you like to see in the comment section? Let us know. Jerry, who would you like to see?
See, that's a talk. First off, can I just say, great episode. I'm halfway through the Bobby Petter one. Now, that's not because I'm in a huff because I wasn't in it. I've been so busy with the wee one's birthday this weekend and then Father's Day taking a wee day off, but I'm halfway through.
You're definitely in a huff. That's why you've not watched
No, do you know what? I wanted to not enjoy it. I wanted to watch and go, yeah, let's see. I was like, damn it, this is so good. So, guys, everyone that's involved in it has been great fun to do. It really has been. And do you know what? Some of the clips and sound bites getting from it has been brilliant, and it's nice to see these players relaxed and hearing their side of things as well. I've been surprised with a lot of things that we've heard from some of them, and obviously we're lucky enough to be off camera at times as well, and just to you know, I'm big in the human side of players, so it's so nice to just hear them talk about normal day things, you know, what they had for their dinner and taking their wains to school, that kind of stuff. So it's been great. It's great for people. I know there was a lot of people who went straight to watch it after the Scotland game because obviously that was pretty traumatic. So it's good to just be able to, not having Celtic around, but able to watch these and be involved in it. And I'm really looking forward to the next one. If I could pick anyone to be on it, come back to me on that one because there's a few.
Have a think, and let us know, Jerry, because I think it's a good discussion.
John Hartson. John Hartson,
right. Okay, because as soon as I hear names, I'll try my utmost to get them on the show.
Right, Larson.
Absolutely. Larson, I think, would need a bigger boat. We need a bigger boat for Larson, right? But I would never ever write it off. So
we want Celtics to show ambition, so I guess that's Acsom as well. We want Henrik.
Why not set your bar there and try and hit it, right? And hit the ceiling on your way to trying to hit it. So that is what we're doing on a weekly basis. And as Jerry quite rightly said, it's dragged me into the world. And it's quite an unfamiliar world of TikTok and Instagram, right? Because I knew that when we did this new show with high-profile ex-Celts and other Celts, so we're going to be tapping into the world of politics, literature, art, music, film, and bringing in the huge, wide-ranging group of Celtic fans who are in all of these fields and bring them into the studio and have a wee chat. We're not trying to, because I know, listen, by the way, there's a place for the shows that just tell funny stories and anecdotes. That's not really where we're angling at this. They'll come naturally. We're not going to try and pull them out of a player because you can actually see sometimes that it's almost kind of like set up, pretty contrived. Tell us a funny story. They'll come. I know. They'll come naturally, Jerry. They'll come naturally. And like watching that back with Bobby, it turns into a discussion piece insofar as afterwards I seem to think to myself, I wish I'd asked him about that night out in Newcastle. Because you just get engrossed in obviously your discussion with them. Because that's something I've heard from a couple of the guys. I don't think Martin O'Neill got too excited by it. John Hartson was glad he never stayed out and got involved in it. But it would have been interesting. Maybe ask him off tape, see if there is a good story.
I think Jerry's right as well, though, that some of the chat before we go live, so that's some, you get some real good stories in there, and it's just nice to get to know the players on a more personal level. And the same with Bobby. I thought he was brilliant. He's a really likable guy. So many stories. It was quite a long show, but you can see why. He's good chat. He's engaging. Even at the end, I could keep going. He was telling us about his one-to-one stuff that he's doing with the coaching and things. So yeah, it's really good. And as you say, they've all got their own different takes on things. They've all got their own different.
We've lost your audio there, Acsom. We've lost your audio. What I would say though, just where Acsom was talking there, Jerry, one of the things that came to my mind was the obscurities of a football career and how they cross over with other ex-Celts. So there's obvious ones with Bobby Petter. When he was at Feyenoord, he played alongside Reggie Blinker and Henrik Larsson. There was the crossover between Wim Jansen and Bobby breaking into the first team. And then he goes to Ipswich, and the captain there is Tony Mowbray. And he mentioned that he played alongside Alex Matthey. Anybody remember Alex Matthey? Matthey had been sold to Greenock Morton, right? And he was a goal scorer, came through the ranks. He ended up, this was bizarre, he ended up being sold to Newcastle United, who at the time, I believe, were in the Premiership. And I remember him scoring a goal on a Monday Night Football live on Sky, playing alongside Andy Cole for Newcastle. This is a Celtic reserve player. And then he eventually goes to Ipswich and he plays alongside Bobby. But he wasn't the most obscure. Jerry Craney was the most obscure. He played with Jerry Craney when they were both at Ipswich very, very briefly. And I seen you find out all these things, and for a Celtic anorak, you can tap into it because you're like, all right, where did it all go wrong for Jerry Craney? I wouldn't mind having him on the show, by the way.
Aye.
What a tale that would be.
It's another one to add to the list. You're right, though. There's even the Ange kind of connection I was taken surprised by as well. So, yeah, there's so much to learn from these players. And I think even the discussion midweek there with Bobby, it tapped into even the kind of more current stuff about wingers maybe not having a great start. Bobby alluded to how he kind of struggled in his first season. And it gave us encouragement as well, looking at our kind of crop of players, that sometimes sliding doors moments, things can quickly change. And you're hoping that could be the case for a few of our players who maybe didn't have the best first season, but can take confidence in the fact that sometimes it's just a growing in period. And as Bobby showed in that second season of his, he was electric, on the verge of a Dutch call up. So there's plenty of potential still in there.
No, you're right, and loads more to come. Loads more to come from ex-Celts and those with a Celtic state of mind. Talking of Netherlands footballers, we've got Brendan Monaghan, who is over in sunny Holland at the moment. And I am guessing, Brendan, you're on tour. You seem to be on tour quite a bit, obviously travelling the world, playing your music. Fantastic. Really, really chuffed to hear from you. And hello from just Plymouth, says Keith. He normally gives us an update. Just wait a minute, there's some sunny faces there as well. Paddy Lavery, I'm bringing this back up because you're going to have to give us a wee bit more context, Paddy. I know you were over this weekend. I know you were over. I don't know if you made it to the Skylark Bar, but tell us more. Why shouldn't we go for a drink with Lawrence Connolly? Let us know more.
Now, there's a lot of people told me, don't have a drink with Paddy Lavery. So if Paddy's saying it about Lawrence, it's got to be bad, right?
There's levels. There is levels there. We're going up. Mark Anthony Smith, we're going to have a chat with us just to open it up before we get into the Euro talk and my theory around, cashing in all your chips from non-contributing players, right? Reinvesting that in the squad to the tune of 36 million. That's the magic figure that I put out on Thursday last week. And keeping Matt O'Reilly. Imagine going into the new season with that set of circumstances. Right. Mark Anthony Smith, God bless John Keane, a real Celtic legend. Thank you, and rest in peace forever, a Celt. We cannot overstate the importance of John Keane to the survival of Celtic Football Club during the dark days of the 1990s. Now, I did an interview with Willie Hockey, who later managed for one half a Celtic select side involving Jerry Taylor. We don't mention it often, but I'm going to bring it up. And Willie Hockey told us in a pre-match interview that Celtic were never going to go bust. Right? He had this firm belief in his mind that there was enough people like John Keane that were going to step in with the money when it was required. And I know I've read all the books, many of which are behind me, and I've heard interviews, and I've interviewed some of the big players in that time period. David Lowe being one of them, who obviously tells the story of us being 8 minutes away from going boom. Brian Dempsey spoke very recently on the excellent ongoing series on the Celtic Exchange, where he spoke about the fact that receivers had already been nominated, Jerry. So they were lined up. The receivers were lined up to take control of the finances of Celtic and potentially wind the club down. 8 minutes is the magical figure given by David Lowe and Fergus McCann with the payment of funds to the bank. John Keane stepped up when he was needed. Others didn't. It's got to be said, Jerry, and John Keane did. It takes you back, though. These guys shouldn't be a footnote in the history of Celtic Football Club. These guys saved this incredible institution that we now are actually benefiting from. This is the legacy of guys like John Keane, the success that we are now enjoying, Jerry. And we've got to celebrate them. We really do.
Absolutely. And I've got to be truthful. See, over the past year or so, is getting to know guys like these, the unsung heroes. And that's all thanks to our very own Oracle, Jim Orr, because obviously he's been in about it all over the years. And the plays that he writes about Celtic and the new one he's got out, this isn't a shameless plug, it's just in context with all, but he's written a play, if you know the history, and he's been teaching me a lot about this. And for this guy to pull £1 million up to keep the banks happy while the transfer was coming through from the international banks for Fergus McCann, it's unreal. £1 million back in the day as well. I mean, to be able to just pull that, the love for your club, to be able to do that, no matter if you're a millionaire or not, £1 million still a hell of a lot of money that you've got to put up there. And if it, like they say, Willie Hockey said there maybe been a few more, but we don't know that exactly. So for him to do that, it's saved the man that saved Celtic, really. They're one of the unsung heroes. So it was nice to learn a lot more about him recently from the likes of yourself and Jim Orr. So yeah, these people need to be spoken about more before we lose them, I think.
This is a big thing, Jerry, right? Because John Keane was in a position where it wasn't an investment where he was going to get a dividend off it. He wasn't giving you £1 million on the proviso that 2 or 3 years down the line he was going to get 3 back. He was putting it in to save the football club, knowing he could lose it. And that's, Acsom, that could be the family silver you're putting in there. You've been a very successful businessman. You're at a stage where you've got access to that kind of money, but there's no guarantee. You're putting that money into a football club with absolutely no guarantee that there's a payoff. Honestly, the mind boggles at the level of commitment to people like John Keane. And it really is something that we really need to remember them, not just on days like today, but as we move forward, every anniversary, we've always got to not just talk about the Bonnet, Fergus, who was astonishing in what he did, but also these guys, and as Jerry said, people who are maybe unsung heroes.
Yeah, unsung heroes. That's exactly it. And I'll admit as well, I was quite young at the time, so I remember it kind of going on. But being age 7 or 8, it was difficult to contextualize everything, and it's only as you get older you learn about it. But even then, it sometimes gets hidden under the carpet in terms of the actual significance, and that's why you're right. The Tino at the Celtic Exchange with the battle to save Celts, I thought that was so educational for even someone like myself, just because you don't go back sometimes and really look at it and analyse how close we were to the brink. And if it wasn't for guys like John and all the others mentioned in that series, we wouldn't be able to enjoy the success of the last decade and beyond that we have. So, owe a debt of gratitude to them. Obviously, thoughts are with his family at this difficult time. And 100%, I think Jerry's right. We should be talking about these people more before it is too late, because they're a huge part. Like as you said earlier, it shouldn't just be a footnote. We need to remember, and that's why it was timely actually that the kind of chat with Jim Orr and Hugh Keevins, even Brian Dempsey, all the guys in the series, because for a lot of people they might not know all that. They might not know about these names, and it's important that we do. So yeah, 100% agree with you both, and like I say, thoughts go out to his close ones today.
What I love about people like at various different levels of that process, people like Jim Orr, who doesn't shout for the rooftop. So I was involved in Save Our Celts, that was a precursor to Celts for Change and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got Brendan Sweeney, for example, who never goes on about his importance to the Celts for Change movement, and John Keane obviously coming up with the money when it was required, and not an insignificant amount of money 30 years ago, Jerry, not an insignificant amount of money today. So an incredible commitment, and these people will always be remembered, certainly by people like Jim Orr, those at Acsom and further afield. So thoughts and prayers. Now, morning from sunny Jamaica. Karen Madden, I love it. I absolutely love it. And by the way, it always brings up that story about Bob Marley, right? So
I knew you were going to say that.
I need to put it out there, Jerry.
It's got to be done.
I've heard this one.
Oh, Acsom, you'll have heard it at least 19 times, but here we go for version 20. And right, the thing is, what I learned in a previous life if someone's telling a lie, right, they will always tell the story exactly the same. Never forget that. If somebody's telling the truth, right, they tend to colour it and embellish it a wee bit, but they're not lying. They're telling the truth. So anyway, I remember
You're taking notes.
Yeah, you're right. I remember the book, Dixie Dean's book coming out, right? And I'm absolute. I love my Celtic books, right? So Dixie Dean's book came out, and he told this brilliant story. I can just imagine his ghostwriter's eyes lighting up, thinking, "Wow, this is the headline." Even though he scored hat-tricks in Scottish Cup finals and everything else, he goes to play football in Australia, as did Bobby Petta, actually, at the end of his career. And while he was over there, Bob Marley and the Wailers were playing a massive concert. So Dixie goes along, he manages to get backstage, and he's talking. There's a great picture of Bob Marley and Dixie Deans. Bob Marley with the dreads, Dixie Deans with the perm. It's a great picture, right? And he tells the story in his book how, when he's talking to Bob Marley, it wasn't even one of the feigned interest stories whereby he's gone, I love Celtic. I absolutely love it. And he was able to recite the Lisbon Lions. Now, you remember when you were a kid and at school, it was like you had to learn Simpson, Craig, Gemmell, Murdoch, McNeil, Clark, Johnson, Wallace, Chalmers, Alden, Lennox, right? And if you didn't, how could you be a Celtic fan? You don't even know who the Lisbon Lions are. So Bob Marley did that to Dixie Deans, and he was like, aye, Bob Marley's a big Celtic fan. And I remember the book was serialised, and people were just rolling their eyes going, Dixie, come on, you could have sold your book without making up stories about Bob Marley, right? Karen, you're to blame for me telling this story again. So we were at Celtic Park one day. I was with a friend of mine called Simon Weir. You know Simon, Jerry.
Yeah.
Simon runs a great stall at the Barras called Zico's. Go and check him out Saturday and Sunday at the weekends down at the Barras. And Simon and I were sitting there, and there's Dixie Deans kicking about. And Simon's like, I need to go and ask him about Bob Marley. So we went up and we got the story completely verified. It was just great to hear it through the horse's mouth, right? So I was around about that time. I'm watching a Bob Marley documentary either on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And I've always been a Bob Marley fan. My dad blessed me with a good musical upbringing, let's just say. And I'm talking as well as the Beatles, like David Bowie, Bob Marley were played in my house, Talking Heads, B-52s, brilliant, right? My mum was more kind of Connie Francis and Patsy Cline, right? Which there's a place for that. And the thing with Bob Marley is I grew up listening to like the Legends double album and all that stuff. And I'm watching this documentary, and there's a picture of him over in Jamaica, as Karen is right now. See, Karen, you've got us on a wee tangent now. And he's standing next to his wife, Rita, and he's got one of these boys on his shoulder, and the boy is wearing the green and white hoops. And I was just blown away when I saw this, right? I thought, further evidence to back up Dixie, right? So I freeze-framed it, and I put it out on Twitter. It's still out there if you want to find it. I put it out there going, Bob Marley, big Celtic fan, here he is with his son. Turns out his son wasn't probably the better-known Ziggy Marley. It was Rohan Marley, who went on to be a footballer over in America, American footballer over there. He now runs a company, a coffee company, a coffee bean company, right? And the amount of people, Celtic fans included, who came in and goes, you didn't believe this claptrap that Bob Marley was a Celtic fan, do you? And all this kind of stuff. Who came in? Who came into the discussion? Rohan Marley. He comes into the Twitter discussion. He says, no, wait a minute. Me and the old fella, we were massive Celtic fans. We loved Celtic and all this. Honestly, it was one of the finest moments of my Celtic supporting life.
Right, Karen, you have now become the Acsom's Jamaican correspondent, feet on the ground. Get into every pub, every bar, see if you can find any stories about him being a Celtic fan. That's your job.
I know. Imagine a picture of Bob Marley in the hoops. No a mock-up, a real image. I would love that. Uncle Nobby's Steamboat, no Scotland, no party, no Celtic, no party. Right. Last time we were on the bulletin, I seen was Friday afternoon, of course, and everybody's looking ahead, and I drive into my street like everybody else, and there's salt tires hanging out the windows and all this kind of stuff, right? It was just, everybody had gone into a frenzy about Friday night. Did you get a chance to watch the game, Asim? What was your thoughts on the way that it transpired? Kevin McCluskey and I covered the game. Yeah. And afterwards we said, is there any point in talking about the actual performance here? Let's talk about the state of Scottish football instead. It was sore to watch, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. You're right. The build-up, there was such a buzz about the place. I was out and about in town, south side. Everyone had the scarves out, the flags. Just felt really good. Everything was set up for it. And then, it was like watching Celtic in the Champions League away from home, wasn't it? It was at times it was the bingo red card, the penalty, the early mistake. It just had it all. It was like that Atletico Madrid away game. It was, there's been a bit of chat, obviously, even within the Acsom group as to our kind of analysis of it. I don't think we're as bad as that. Germany were very good, and there is obviously a golfing class, but not to that extent. I think we were really, really disappointing on the day. None of the players showed themselves up the way they could, but ultimately, I think we were set up really poorly. I think we were caught in between. I don't think we were trying to be cautious, but then we were nowhere near their key players. We were miles off it. We weren't making it difficult for the likes of Cruz to get on the ball and pick his passes at will. There was no aggression. We were just lacked anything that has been good about the Scotland team in the last couple of years. Obviously, we've not been on a good run of form, but in the competitive games where we did well against the likes of Denmark, Spain, Norway, was when we were in their faces, making it difficult, quick on the counter. I just felt there was none of that. And it was just really deflating because I've actually quite enjoyed the Euros so far. I think most of the games have been of a good tempo, good intensity, lots of goals. So other than that Scotland game, it's been quite a good watch. But I do think we'll turn up on Wednesday and play differently. I just think we got it all wrong in terms of our setup and approach. And then within that, I think the players, and Steve Clarke kind of alluded to it in his press conference, maybe they were overcoached, too much information. And it seemed like that. It didn't seem like they were playing with a freedom. And see, when you've got a good midfield like we do, and that's our strongest area, you need to let them be free and let them try and get on the ball. And we were just set up all wrong. But in saying that, the players have to take accountability, and nobody had pass marks in that team.
Yeah, I think my biggest disappointment's the central defensive area. It's something that we're going to have to strengthen as a club. But, I was looking at even the sending off Jerry, and I just thought to myself, it was so reckless. It was always going to happen. He's a player, actually, when he went to Watford, Porteous, that we ran the tagline, should we sign him? And it was put out there, not, I think we should sign him. It was the genuine question, is this a type of player that Celtic should start to bring in and develop? I think that he's always been limited. I was hearing good reports about him improving, particularly the side of his game where he was a bit wild in the tackle, it should be said. And I was just really disappointed because a lot of people are hugely invested in the Euros in terms of going there, going and spending a lot of money. Ewan has gone over for the opening. He sent a video. It was incredible, actually, the amount of people who were at one of the fan zones. And a big part of the discussion after the game, though, Jerry, was about, it is great to travel well. Of course it is. It's great to, Celtic getting the Fair Play Awards ×2 after Seville, about the fact that, there's no trouble and all that. That is brilliant. Would it not be great to have a good football team as well, though? And I think that the point I was making on the night was that we're part of this. Celtic are part, and that's why we're part of the discussion. We're part of Scottish football. Scottish football is run by dinosaurs, right? And the Steve Clarke situation is he's at the end of the processing line. Everything that's happened to produce and create and develop footballers, that's already happened. Steve Clarke's got absolutely no control over any of that stuff. He just then has to pick what he thinks is his best squad, put them together, and then obviously if he gets anything wrong, he can be criticised for that. But in terms of the clutch of players he's got, why don't we have a decent centre-half? Why don't we have a decent goalie? Why don't we have a decent centre-forward? That's not Stevie's fault. That's not Stevie Clarke's fault. That is the fault of the football authorities who have failed time and time again to give Scottish football the fit up the backside it needs, to bring in diversity of thought, at the SFA. The other week there, me and Jim were talking about Mulroney, Mike Mulroney, talking about Hampden Park, VAR, and also the head of referees, and thinking that this is all great. The status quo is tremendous for Scottish football.
So out of touch,
when it's not, is it? It really isn't. We have Liam on here all the time talking about the progressive nature of the Japanese game. You look at the last time we got to a World Cup final, 1998, right? We've never qualified since. Japan's first ever World Cup finals was 1998, and they have never failed to qualify since. Not just that, they've got into the last 16 on 4 occasions, Jerry. Mm-hmm. So we're standing still as a nation. In fact, we're going backwards.
Yeah. Well, first I need to say my granny's German, so get it around you. No, I'm only kidding. Well, she is German, but I was still devastated, mate. Devastated.
So you could have played in goals. This is what you're getting at. You could have been Bodo Illgner or You know,
Do you know something, right?
Schumacher probably.
Me being me, what was I like saying in the podcast? I think we're going to get to the knockout stages. I think we're going to get to the semi-final because I was built up in all that hype. I was seeing how relaxed the players were looking. I was looking at some of the crop that's come through recently. Obviously, I think Ben Doak. I was so excited from hearing behind the scenes that this boy. I mean, this Ben Doak, for anyone that doesn't know or that doesn't believe yet, from everyone we've spoken to, this boy's our Wayne Rooney. And I was watching the documentary of him getting taken to the World Cup, and that's what I was hoping to the Euros. Ben Doak was going to come alive and all that. And it's just been injury and bit of bad news. But I still, bad news after bad news, but I still thought we were going to get in there and make a good account of ourselves. But 10 minutes in, I think we went in with far too much adrenaline. Now, I don't want to dwell on it too much. You see how we cheered getting putting it out for a corner. You're not doing that at the start of the game, because you do that at the start of the game, you've nowhere else to go. You've got nowhere else to go, and everyone's adrenaline's down for there. You've got to go in more composed. You can be excited for the game, but you've got to contain that adrenaline. I just think it was 100 miles an hour, and then they just didn't know we'd hit them. I do think that we're going to get a couple of good results. I'm definitely hoping we'll get a couple of good results. It can't be as bad as that. What we do know about Scottish people as a nation is we don't like to hurt the nation. We don't like to let people down. They're going to come back out angry. But again, the players are taking it. A lot of players, I've seen pretty much most of the team get it individually. Mostly our players be getting it a heck of a lot more, and ex-players a heck of a lot more. But I think you've got to look at the way the team's been set up to the type of players we've got now. When Steve Clarke took over, I don't think we had as many prospects coming through where we had to sit back. We had to be the team that's hard to beat. But you look at some of these players that we've got, we could cause a few upsets if we just go out and have a bit of belief in ourselves and don't try and contain for 90 minutes. Don't go in with these negative tactics. Because I'll tell you something, one of the most positive guys I know, Double Denim, that broke him. And to see him like that just proves just how bad it was. I mean, that guy was distraught, and quite rightly so. I don't think we should give up on things, but I like what you're saying, Paul John. We can't keep going on this. Oh, but look how much I laugh with. I said on Twitter, judge us by what we do when we take people to the streets and not the 11 men. I still want to be known as a great football nation. And I think we've got the chance to do that. What I'm also not going to be is the one that slags off our other nation for not winning or not doing well, because that's what happens to us in our league, is they get off on the fact that we're not winning something when they never win anything. So I'm not in the mentality of slagging other teams and try to get off on their misery.
I still enjoy that, Jerry. I still enjoy it.
I still enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, last night I was Serbian to the core, but look,
I want to talk a wee bit about that. Right, if you're from my neck of the woods, I'm from the West Five Villages, as I've said many times on here. We clutchy small mining villages historically, and if you drive, let's say from Dunfermline towards Kincardine, which I often do if I'm going to Glasgow, there is like what is called the back road, Jerry, right? And everybody knows
I know it well.
Yes, you know it well. And you drive to your left will be a village called Oakley, and there is a family who have got a flagpole in their back garden, and for every major tournament, their flag up there is whoever is playing England. I kid you not. They buy whoever is playing England, and the flag is flying in Oakley every single time. Just across from the watchtower, there's a wee watchtower which I always found was a bit mysterious. God knows what goes on up there. But let's bring in some of the comments. Durbin Kilchie, you're in. I hope all the Acsom Daz had a good day yesterday. Yes, I hope they did. All the Celtic Daz, I hope you had a tremendous time. It is fantastic seeing a new generation of Celts coming through, and the wee fella, actually, this is the thing, Jerry. This is the thing that's interesting, right? I look at the next generation. So my wee guy's 7, going on 8, right? And are Scotland exciting to him, or are England exciting to him, right? So you look at where they're consuming their football content, if you like. Back in my day, you collected stickers for the Panini sticker albums. You would maybe buy Shoot, Match, Roy the Rovers, etc. Beyond the Celtic View and all that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, English football always had a wee bit more money. Of course it did. And it had more flair. It's a wee bit more box office. But see, now it really is night and day. And the Scottish game doesn't have the same appeal to a new generation, Acsom, and we cannot allow that to happen. Because, we're going to be having this conversation in 20 years if that's the case, if people don't buy into it from a young age. You can go on about it. Quite near to me, there's a set of playing fields called Petrivi. On a Sunday, there's 1,500 kids down there playing football, right? And when they're training, how many of them are wearing local colours or Scottish football teams? It's Real Madrid, it's Man City, it's Spurs, Arsenal, Man United, Inter Miami, right? And you look at the way Scottish football looks upon it, Jerry, it's almost like we'll open our doors and yous will come. It doesn't always work like that.
No.
We need to work a wee bit harder, Acsom, at times.
Yeah, it can be a harder sell, when we're up against all these superstars from all the other different countries, and we don't do ourselves any favours, the Scottish game, in terms of promoting it and making it as exciting. And for the younger guys, as you say, it's all about the social media, shorts and all that kind of stuff. And Scottish football just seems so behind the curve in terms of innovative, kind of creative ideas to sell the game and sell its players and all that. And look, we're not naive enough to know that we are, we're not one of the big nations, but in terms of Celtic and, the size of Celtic, like, for example, we were just talking about Father's Day there, so yeah, I echo Urban Culture's sentiments there. It was a double celebration for us yesterday. We had the religious holiday of Eid yesterday as well, so it was nice kind of getting all the nephews and cousins all round, and we were all watching the Euros, and my dad's done a good job. We're all very much supporting whoever's against England as well. So,
is that your house with the flagpole in Oakley, Acsom, man? Sure they are. Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Right down to my nephews, they're kind of all in the same boat as well. So they're just Celtic in Scotland, no one else, which is good, but it's harder to do that in this day and age. But yeah, I remember when Italy beat England in that penalty shootout. The celebrations when that penalty shootout ended were something. So no, like, obviously, Jerry, I can echo what you're saying. We want to actually become a good footballing nation ourselves, and just to kind of go back on that, when Steve Clarke came in, we were a bit of a laughing stock. He inherited a bit of a mess, and he made us really difficult to beat. He made us a good solid unit, and I think he's done a great job. But you do think now, with the players we've got and the kind of creative element of the side now, does that need a more creative approach and a mindset from the manager? And look, I'm not writing him off, because we've still got 2 games to go and we can turn it around. But that'll be 2 competitions now so far. The 3 games in the last Euros, albeit we did well at Wembley, but the 2 home games against Croatia and Czech were disappointing, and then obviously the other night. So let's hope we can redeem ourselves. But I do feel that we're not blessed with the greatest of players, and as you said, in defence and up front, Paul John. So that's not on Steve Clarke, but what we do have is a lot of creative and really good midfielders playing at a high level. Whether it's in the Premiership or you've got Cal McGregor for us. There's a lot of good players in there, and I would hope that we can set the team up in a way that really utilises our strengths rather than kind of make us too cautious. So I'm still hopeful. I watched the Switzerland game the other day, and I thought they looked pretty good. So that's not going to be easy. But you do hope that we can still get out of this group somehow.
Yeah.
Can I just say something on that? Sorry, mate. See, just off the back of that, that's what you're saying. You were saying about we don't have those great players, right, at our disposal. Why is that the case? Now, I was saying to my boy, I was like, why is he not out kicking the ball about? See when the season ends, do you know the council take all the 11-a-side goals down to protect the park for the next season, right? So basically what we would do as kids is we'd take one of the goals, another group would take the other goals. The park over there, the KG5, right? It's got 6 pitches, right? That's 12 sets of goals taken away all summer for them to go and play at. And all they've got to play is the wee AstroTurf that they all fight over. You can't get all those hundreds of kids. So there's nowhere to go. There is nowhere for them to play. When I was out, we'd go there because it was free. We'd be there all day, late for your dinner, and then back out again. That's where the passion came from, playing with your mates and your mate going, oh, you were brilliant. Oh, that was a great goal. Oh, I want to go back tomorrow and get more credit for that and play better. We don't have that. We don't have that. I was reading somebody's tweet as well about when they're seeing all the coaches, and I'm not saying every coach does this in Scotland, but I've heard it umpteen times as well, as, oh, don't try the fancy stuff, do this, do that. Why not? Why are we setting these players up to be negative all the time? There's no mentality. We don't have the flair because we're told not to have the flair. Right, we're told to be cautious about everything. That's going to affect your mentality as a player going in. Because I'm telling you, a lot of the Scotland players are brilliant. but they didn't show it because they didn't have the mentality on the day, because we're probably coached that way as youngsters. And I'm not having a go at the coaches for youngsters, because there's some brilliant coaches out there, probably some world-class coaches that haven't been picked up on, but there's still too many of them that are giving it that, don't do any of the fancy stuff. Well, I'm sick of it. I'd love to see our teams doing the fancy stuff, because I've played with players at school and at Sunday League who have got brilliant flair and could have made it, but they probably didn't because they were told not to be the player they were.
Yeah.
Get the goals up all season. Let them out there and play. Rant over. Sorry.
There's major issues.
There's a good few points in there. There's
Mm-hmm.
a good few points in there which I think are totally relevant. You know, I remember you're like yourself playing at a younger age, and a few of my friends, we were not the tallest or the most physical. You know, I was quite skinny back then, but we were good technical players. But I just remember we were always getting dropped or left out for your bigger athletes. You know, and that's always been the case from as long as I can remember, that physicality would be looked at higher than technical ability. And I think that's, you even look at the kind of Scottish game itself. You know, there's most of the managers in our league don't have a kind of identity of how they want the teams to play. You know, they don't have that style of play. It's all about, you know, trying to play safe or percentage football, stuff like that. And that's one argument you raised there, Jerry. The other is, as you say, the cost of trying to play football these days. You know, when we're up against the world of now the social media and the PlayStation and the gaming and all that, you have to make it more appealing. But having some of the cost just to go, like, there's a goals complex around the corner from me here, but the cost of trying to hire out a pitch to play with your mates is extortionate. So we're making it less appealing or less likely for these kids to go out and be able to play. As you said, Jerry, back in the day, you just go to the local park, the big goals are there, you just get a wee game with your mates. It's we're not doing ourselves any favours whatsoever.
No, did you ever steal fishing nets and hang them from the back of the goals?
We tried everything, Jerry. You would do anything, wouldn't you?
Anything.
You absolutely would. And one of my fondest memories is a game that we devised, and I don't know if it was a Fife thing, called 5 and a Kicking. And if you hit the ball wide, yes. If you hit the ball wide, you were in goals. If you let 5 goals, you got a kick.
Oh, I never did the kicking, but we did the putting it wide bit, aye.
No, you became pretty good in goals, strangely. James Kirwan, that's not why I never made it. It was just that lack of ability that really kept growing.
You always talk yourself down, Paul John. Bobby Pettle and Tommy Sheridan were saying you're no bad a player.
Remember, he's a good guy. Have you seen his free kick? You ever seen that free kick he scores? Mate.
Adidas are looking for the Predators to be put into the museum alongside John Collins's, but I'm holding on to them. Great show Friday night, Paul. Fantastic watch. James, we will be announcing very soon who our 4th guest is going to be. It's tremendous. I was up, believe it or not, at 4:30 this morning. You know, sometimes an idea's burning a hole in your head, and you get up and you think, I've just got to do this right now. And I was emailing somebody who might be on Wednesday, so watch this space. 4:30, they're probably looking at going, this guy's doing an all-nighter. I don't want to go on a show with him.
It was definitely Matt O'Reilly, wasn't it?
Possibly. Smell the glove. Get CM Punk on with you, PJD.
Bro, mate, we've got to get CM Punk on. Oh,
you know the thing, right? Every time that Smell the Glove avatar comes up, that's beautiful. That's a canvas. That's a work of art. George McCluskey, you know, mid-flight in the 1980 Scottish Cup final, and of course it started a riot, and we've never been able to have a bevy at the football since. Cheers, George.
Cheers, George.
That's the game. That's the game. But the reason I bring this up, CM Punk, right? There's one person with a profile in a completely different arena, right, who loves Celtic. Snoop Dogg, right? Bob Marley, who we mentioned at the top of the show. It's about tapping into this, though, right? Gil Scott-Heron, obviously, his dad played for Celtic, right? How do we tap into it, though? Because Pablo Picasso sketched an ex-Celtic player. You've got all these different links to different worlds and different regions, right? Tap into them, you know, because the Bob Marley thing, it's just as if we just let it go kind of thing. Nah, I mean, I would have, when they were over for the screening of the movie, I would have his family at Celtic Park, you know. I would really tap into this. You could then tap into Jamaica. You know, this is the thing. You talk about Soccer Aid. Why do they spend X amount of pounds on getting Usain Bolt? Well, it's quite clear why they do it. Because, you know, the people tune in. Wherever the region is for that particular player, people tune in and they generate more finances that way. Celtic need to be cuter, I think, at tapping into these things, because so many people out there love the football club in the world of the arts and all this kind of stuff. We need to tap into it. There's another one there.
Sorry, what's the
Macklemore.
craziest Celtic connection that anyone out there knows? Let us know.
Pablo,
Do you know any
Pablo
crazy
Bacassi.
ones?
Pablo. It's Pablo.
That's
Pablo.
got to be.
It's got to be.
Who did he sketch? I've missed out this one.
Well, let us know in the comments. Let us know in the comments.
Oh,
yes.
tease.
He did. Over in Cannes. Danny boy, here we go. I know the Euros aren't for all fans' cup of tea, but it gives you a great insight into what to expect in Europe next season, and it's frightening. What I would say about last night, right? Dragan Stojkovic. He was a player, even back then, what I found interesting back then, the Euros, Jim spoke about this on Friday, gave you an opportunity to see loads of live football, whereas you didn't really get that back in the kind of late 80s. You didn't get that. And until Sky Sports with a big broadcasting deal, you know, I remember watching a few Celtic games live, but no many on the TV. Cup finals, generally. And I remember a Celtic v Rangers game during the centenary season that was live at Ibrox, and Celtic beat them 2-1. But it was live on the TV. It was incredible. But you didn't see it all that often. So to know about a footballer called Dragan Stojkovic, who played for a team called Red Star Belgrade back in the late 80s, he was something of a mythical figure, right? And he played in a football team with, I think, Dejan Savicevic and Robert Prozanetsky. You'll have heard of him, right? And the guy, it was just like a myth, as I say, a mythical creature. And Celtic invited Red Star Belgrade over for a centenary game, Jerry, in 1988. And Stojkovic was playing. He was playing at Celtic Park, right? And I've seen a few people mentioning this last night because, of course, he's now the manager of Serbia. And he's still as cool as you like. He was giving it tight to the England players and to the referee and all the rest of it. He was a class player. Was anybody at that centenary game, 2-2, I think it was, against Red Star Belgrade at Celtic Park?
I wasn't at that game, but I was at the one where Prozanetsky, is that how you pronounce it? What a player. I remember, I think it was Croatia Zagreb at the time they were called.
He played with Marko Viduka, didn't he?
Marko Viduka. And they beat us like 3-0 in Croatia. But I remember the game at Celtic Park, and Prozanetsky ran the show. And I remember for quite a long time, I was like, that's one of the best players I've seen at Celtic Park.
And apparently he smoked 40 cigarettes a day, all this stuff.
What a player that was. But yeah, there's a lot of good players in that region. And that's why I've kind of watched a lot of the games, and you find some gems. You know, it's when you're watching these kind of tournaments, a lot of these players will be playing at good levels already, but sometimes you can get someone out of nowhere. And that's where, again, Celtic, the scouting team, need to be on that and making sure that we're quick to pounce if there is kind of unknown gems, because a lot of these players make their breakthrough at tournaments like this, and then that's when they get their next big move. I know we've done that in the past as well. So I'm interested to watch this. Like, I think there's Romania, Ukraine. So these kind of obscure games.
It's crazy, isn't
it? The perks of working from home. So I'll be like doing my work while watching a bit of Romania, Ukraine.
Yeah, Martin O'Neill did a punditry, didn't he, for the 2000 Euros and spotted Juice Valhaeren playing for Belgium. Yeah, it can be done. Durban Culture, I watched England last night. They are going to bring us great joy quite soon. For me, from what I've seen, they were. I didn't watch first half. I thought they were really quite. Were they poor, or did Serbia play them pretty well? I thought they were up against a right good side. To be honest,
think Serbia went in at half time and were told they're not what they're making out to be, by the way, and they've went back out with confidence and showed them, because they looked rattled at times, they're disjointed. I mean, we can't slag them. We're there for a laugh anyway, but it was they weren't great.
For being one of the tournament favourites, which I think they are. They've got a lot of good attacking players, but their back line to me doesn't look strong enough to win that tournament, and their midfield balance doesn't look quite right. So I think they'll do all right in the groups. They always tend to, and then I think when they come up against one of a few of the nations have looked good so far, but it's early stages. But I like the look of obviously Germany, Spain look good, and even Italy. That's the thing. That's where we could probably get frustrated at Scotland. Most of the teams that we've watched have all at least given a good account of themselves so far.
Yeah.
You know, even in going down in defeat, likes of Serbia last night as well, were unlucky. So it's interesting. Like I say, I'm enjoying it. It'll be good to see France later on. I think they're the favourites for me, and we'll see how they get on.
Yeah,
I'm blaming the pitch. It was that opening ceremony. Why did they do it on a pitch? I hate them. I hate opening ceremonies. I think they're the most pointless. Oh, look at us! Get rid of them.
Even
make a
when
video and
Diana
shows
Ross takes a penalty kick.
that was brilliant. That was good.
It was. Henrik McLarson, love that you've been doing the sums, Paul. Yes, there seems to be money coming from every crevice at this moment in time when it comes to Celtic. We've already got hundreds of money in the vault, copyright Paddy McGilp, and then we've got all this other cash coming in, flowing in from sell-on clauses, the sale of non-contributing players, and not the sale of Matt O'Reilly. And this is the big thing that I'm putting out there. Did we show ambition under Ange Postecoglou in the second summer transfer window, as seen where we kept Jota and CCV? I would say yes, we did. If we went out there and signed Bernardo and Ida, I don't think it's at the same level. It might cost you as much money, but it's not at the same level in terms of that, the impact that the previous two would have given us. If we keep Matt O'Reilly on top of that, though, I think that shows true ambition. And I know it's a discussion we've had before, but the chat is Celtic are not going to settle for £25 million when it comes to Matt O'Reilly. We are basically saying, listen, we've got half a dozen teams available. You've all got money. This guy's now going into his third campaign in the Champions League, potentially. Very narrowly missed out the Denmark squad for the Euros. He's worth more than 25 million. And I don't know if it will scare off his suitors, I've seen, but it does show that the club are in no hurry to get rid of this player, and I'd love to see him lining up in the hoops at the beginning of the season. Why not?
Yeah, the longer it goes on, the more, obviously, we're literally just the transfer window open on Friday, but I think it's about knowing the player as well. Like the club knowing the kind of player that Matt O'Reilly is, they can probably afford to do that, where it's not going to be a guy who's going to down tools or kick up fuss. I think if Celtic say to Matt O'Reilly, this is what we rate you as, value you as, and that's the minimum asking price. And if that doesn't get matched, we'll be looking to hold. Obviously, again, we'll see how that transpires. But I don't think Matt O'Reilly will be absolutely opposed to that idea of potentially another year at Celtic. And again, it depends what kind of clubs are linked with him. We've spoke about it before. None of your kind of West Hams. I think it needs to be another top Champions League type of team that's going to take him away from us. So we'll see. But I get from your point of view in terms of Jota and CCV were absolute essentials for us. They were mainstays of that team. They contributed all season in Andrew's first year. It was a big statement of intent for us to shell out $6 million. Well, but not even just monetary wise, but just to make sure that we kept them for that second year. With Ida and Bernardo, it's not going to have the same impact. It's still two players that I would like for us to keep, but I don't think that alone will signify, look, we're doing big business here. I think that's the bare minimum. I think on top of that, we're going to have to spend big. We've mentioned it before. We're going to have to look at a certain profile of player now. And if we, on top of that, can keep Matt O'Reilly, brilliant. But if Matt O'Reilly went for 30 million, that's a lot of cash there on top of all the other things that you've spoke about earlier in the show, all the other streams of income coming in. For us to really go out and make sure that we've got a solid squad, every single weak area that we spoke about all season needs to be fully addressed, so that when we go into that first game of the new season, we're not looking at the squad and thinking, there's an imbalance there, or that area looks weak. You want to be, and we've got the opportunity to do that now. There's no excuses anymore for us to start the season, even in any kind of doubt that, okay, we don't look like we've got enough cover there. Greg Taylor shouldn't be our first choice left back. The goalkeeping situation needs to be sorted. A winger definitely needs to come in. A centre back needs to come in. We've got enough time. We've got enough money. We've got the Champions League new format. There's no excuses.
No, I like that. In a nutshell, Asim, that's exactly how we should be approaching this. Now, Daniel, I fear he will be off. Watched the Denmark game yesterday, and they drew. They were missing a player who can create, but that Danish manager doesn't rate the SPL. The SPFL, you're right.
What was your feelings on Joe Hart when he left? Because what was your update? Because I remember, Daniel, you were quite critical, as was I. Did you change your mind on Joe Hart? I've always wanted to ask that. Can you remember? ...
We'll wait and see if Danielle comes back into the chat in the next 1 minute to answer you, Jerry, because I feel as though you're trying to throw a cat amongst the pigeons. Danielle's views on Joe Hart did tend to soften in the second half of last season, if I remember right. If you're still on, Daniel, get stuck into Jerry.
He did a great job yesterday, by the way, in his new job, I thought. A bit stiff at the start, but I thought he really came into his own. Thought, good luck to him.
No, absolutely. Brilliant. Great ambassador for Celtic as well, I'm sure. This is the thing, right?
I was going to
can
make a joke there, but I was like, nah, it's too early for that.
too early. The underwater cabbage salesman. If you look at it, individually and say, right, we've bought this guy for £1.5 million. What if someone bids 30 million? We cannot say no. And I'm saying we can. We absolutely can, because it's bigger than just that individual transfer from MK Dons and the fact that it's something of an anomaly, doesn't happen all that often. We don't really need, there's no rush. There isn't an instant gratification here that we need to sell him right here and now, because next season we're going to be in better shape. Unless there's an absolute disaster of a window, and the circumstances are different now, right? So we go on about the circumstances when Brennan took over, the transition from Ange Postecoglou, etc. There were so many circumstances that transpired against us having a good window, right? And it was similar, actually, although this is definitely with hindsight, it was similar when we were going into the COVID season, going for 10, whereby we done things in a certain way that after the event we said we should have done that differently. I don't see us having such a bad transfer window this time round. I don't think Brendan Rodgers would settle for it. I think the riches that we keep talking about are going to ensure that we do this differently. We're going to buy less for more, and we're going to get more quality as a result of it. I don't think we can focus just on that player and the profit, which would be a record profit in Scottish football, on anybody. I don't think we should focus on that. I think we need to look at the wider issue of us going into that Champions League with an opportunity to finish 24th at the very least, to get another couple of games and be in the last 16. How do we do that? We keep our best assets, Matt O'Reilly being one of them. And it will prevent me from getting up at 4:30 to make sure he's still with the football club, Jerry. Let me just check one last time to see if Daniel, you're back in. You're back in, Danielle.
The cabbage salesman. So when you're saying, if you've got a house worth 50 million, mate, and you know it's worth 50 million, but you bought the house for 1.5, and over the years you've seen the house get better and better and worth more, but the bank says, but you bought it for 1.5, 25 million still good. You tell them to go and take a run and jump, and that's the way I see it with Matt O'Reilly. He's worth a lot more than that, mate. Calvin Bassey
sending all the grenades here right at the end.
Easton.
But we need better.
I agree.
Right. Excellent. I'm glad we sorted that out before the end of the show, Jerry. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. We are going out on Friday night now on our new Friday night show. This is Acsom, different guests every week. And the contributors are being mixed up as well, that you'll have noticed in the first 3 episodes. Also, we are going to be live. We're running a very special offer for our dedicated followers of Acsom. If you have the code AXOM1888, you can click on the link underneath this video and come along to see Petrov, Jackie Mack and Alan Thompson live at Barazat and Design on the 27th of June, and we'll give you your tickets half price. Can't say fairer than that. I think there's about 40 left.
By the way. What a lineup.
There's no many left. There's no many tickets left, but if you want to come along, half price. If you've been late and getting your old fella a Father's Day gift, that kind of stuff, Acsom 1888. Is that the code, or is it 1967? No, I think it's 1888. Check underneath the video here. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. 1,300 of you live. We're over our time. All that's left for me to say thank you once again, Jerry Taylor, Asim Rabbani, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.